Hello and welcome to everyone listening to the Written in Melanin Podcast, the place where you come to get your weekly dose of melanated creativity. I'm your host, CM Lockhart, an author of fantasy books featuring Black girls who aren't all that nice, and the owner of the Melanin Library, an online database of books written by Black authors. And in this space, I invite you to listen to the journeys of Black authors with the hope that you'll gain something from it. I'm glad that you are here. That being said, today I am here with a special guest, Antoine Bandele. He is an amazing Amazon best-selling author in action, adventure, fantasy, dark fantasy, sword and sorcery, African-American fantasy, African literature, and young adult Norse myths and legends, which is honestly very impressive. He was born and raised in Los Angeles, though he spent 1 year in Fort Lewis near Tacoma, Washington, while his father served in the U.S. Army, and he lives in Los Angeles with his life partner and cat. You can find him producing videos all over YouTube, including his own channel, which you should totally check out. And he is also an audiobook engineer, and he is also an incredible author. And I am glad to be able to call him a friend. And he's back on the podcast for the third time. Welcome back, Antoine.
Hello.
Welcome. So for those of you who are just now tuning in, if you are new to the podcast, then like I said, Antoine is a return guest. He's been on here for multiple books at this point. So if you're interested in some of those earlier conversations, for sure, go back, listen to it, get into it. But that being said, Antoine, for the people who are just now tuning in for the first time and you are brand new to them, what would you tell them about yourself? And also, please introduce the TJ Young series to them.
Yeah, so I'm Antoine Bandele, the author of the TJ Young series. I've been writing since 2017 as a chiefly independent book publisher. I am pretty militant about being independent, which has been beneficial to me, which we'll probably talk about more within the podcast. I write chiefly African mythology, whether we're talking about my more adult Dungeons and Dragons type stuff with my Sky Pirate series or dark fantasy with the Kishi. My most popular series is my TJ Young and the Orishas series, which is currently optioned for a motion picture, very similar to Percy Jackson, Harry Potter, but instead of it being the Greek gods, it's the West African Orishas, which are deities, not gods that, people sometimes mix up that designation, but they're more spirit-based entities than they are like gods who overrule or overwatch certain things.
Dope. And for those of you listening, if you know anything about me, you'll know that I'm very quick to say I did not read the book. I have actually read the TJ Young series, and I can tell you with absolute certainty, this is something that you should get into. Like you said, if you enjoy Percy Jackson, if you enjoyed Harry Potter, if you enjoyed kids and magic and schools, any of that, definitely pick up the TJ Young series. It is definitely one that I found myself sinking into, and TJ is so relatable. I mean, we talked about that before in a previous podcast, but this time I kind of do want to talk about more of kind of the author aspect of writing a series, because you mentioned being independent and being very dedicated to that. So before we get into other questions, let's touch on that. First, what made you decide to publish your books yourself? And then why are you still, even after having yourself optioned, nope, this is mine, this is going to stay with me, I'm not looking to shop it around?
Well, I mean, it's probably the option that made me even more militant on being indie, because for example, let's say I was with the publisher and that option came through. I would see the peanuts of that option. When I'm directly working with a Hollywood producer and negotiating rates and working with a lawyer myself, I see all of that. And it's not an insignificant amount of money. It paid off the book and then some, to the point where I could do more things. I'm able to do live events now, so I was able to have the capital to get that churning, and also marketing and all that. It helps with that big push. But yes, indie, I started that because I've always been that way. Back in college, I did YouTube content creation. And in doing YouTube content creation, it was kind of a way of going against the grain of the multimedia major that I was in, which is going to the film industry in Los Angeles. And I never really liked the rules of the industry, kind of the direct path and that kind of stuff. And I kind of just wanted to create just now. And at that same time, when I graduated high school in 2008, that was the same time that YouTube was blowing up. 4 years later, I believe, is when they added monetization. And that's about the time when I started doing it. 2015 is when I was all right, I'm leaving my day job. I'm doing YouTube full time. And that segued directly into my publishing, which I did 2 years after that. And it was just something natural. It was a natural segue because I already was, sort of militant in being indie on like the YouTube content creation space and, making short films and that sort of thing. And then just implanting that or supplanting that to publishing.
I love that you touched on that because I feel like when it comes to deciding which path you're going to be on as an author, whether it's going to be indie or trad or whatever, one of the things that I have kind of found common in indie authors is the fact that it's just like, I have always kind of been going against the grain, and I have always known that I was going to do this myself, and I like the control and the creative freedom that comes with doing this. So the fact that you're like, yeah, I had a day job, and I went to school for this, but it's just like I like being able to do what I want to do, and the rules of it don't necessarily vibe with me the way that they probably should in order to be full-time creator in this space, the way that it's probably imagined it should be.
There's an important lesson there, I think, in particular, because while, yes, I am independent, I do want to do my own thing and all that kind of stuff, I do make sure that I treat myself like a traditional publisher. Like, for example, when the Hollywood producer came to me, initially thought that the book was, trad because of what I do with it. Like, I get, professional cover designers, I get professional editors, I do beta readers, alpha readers, I have proofers, I don't skimp on any one thing. My audiobooks, very professionally produced. I don't skimp on any one thing, and I do lean into certain things that I have to do, like writing to market or making sure I identify the tropes and what's selling at what time, so that I can be sustainable. Because I know sometimes some indie authors on the other end will be like, yeah, I want to do my own thing and do something like crazy creative, and then like get really down on themselves when it doesn't sell because you haven't done like
all that whole
stuff.
Word.
Yeah.
I feel like we could have a whole conversation about that because I know that one of the things that I run across a lot is when I'm talking to indie authors, especially newer ones who are like, I want to just, like you said, do this crazy thing. And I want to be out here and I want to like break all the molds or whatever. And it's like, okay, cool. You can absolutely definitely do that. And I'm not saying that that is not going to work in your favor, right? But there is also, like you said, the other end of indie marketing where it's just like when you're objectively here, generalizing, saying that, hey, I'm going to make a career out of this. I want this to be financially stable and things like you do have to think about these things. And there's a reason why trad publishing does these things because it's a business. And when you're running something as a business, you kind of have to look at it from the aspect of, does this sell? How does this work? And sort of the expectations that your user base is going to be expecting. And that does come down to, what does the cover look like? What is the quality of the interior? And like you said, investing in cover artists and cover designers and alpha readers, beta readers, and proofreaders, editors. I know that for a lot of indie authors, I've had conversations with them where a lot of times, because of the financial commitment some of these things take, the first thing to go is an editor. And it's just kind of like, it's a choice, and I get it. I fully do, because money, capitalistic society in 2025. Yeah, I fully understand having to make financial decisions. But on the opposite end of that, professionally, the thing that you need is definitely an editor, because like you said, that getting that option, a lot of that probably came from the fact that your book doesn't, I don't want to say it doesn't look like it's independently published, because I feel like that perpetuates the stigma. But I would say people have this idea of what to expect when you say that you published your book yourself. And when the quality surpasses that, it's like, oh, okay. And so when people tell an independently published author, like, oh, I didn't realize that your book was independently published, that really is a compliment, because it's like saying, oh, you broke out of the stereotype. You broke out of the stigma. Like, you're proving me wrong of what independent publishing can be, right?
Because there is the opposite end where someone publishes too much or too fast and just slaps whatever up there, and that's another stigma that we have to be aware of as well as independents, because there are other independent authors out there who are not putting out quality work, and it is diminishing overall us, the ones who are putting effort into our books.
Absolutely. I mean, I feel like it's with anything, like it's a spectrum. Like, there is definitely the authors who I'll say are like us, where you're putting in as much as you can into your book to present a quality product, where it's just like from top to bottom. My goal is for you not to be able to distinguish this from any other traditionally published book. I want you to pick it up and get into it and just read it for what it is, and accept it for the product that it is. But then there's also the other end of the spectrum where it's just like, I'm doing this for fun, and this is a little more than a hobby and like, cash money for me on the side. And I am going to do this with as little personal investment as possible. Like, there's a reason why you have courses on like how to publish your book for free. And then you have courses on, okay, you need to save up at least X amount of money to be able to put a book out. There's advice for everyone, no matter where they fall on the spectrum. You
Yeah,
know?
it's funny you mentioned that. I actually call myself a professional hobbyist.
A professional hobbyist. Okay, explain that. Elaborate on that.
Because almost everything I do, like, is essentially just a hobby done professionally. Whether I'm talking about my YouTube content creation, where I do a lot of stuff on Avatar: The Last Airbender. I've been invited to, like, the premieres, and I've gotten like sponsorships, stuff like that, which generates income. My book publishing, that is a hobby really, but it's just done professionally, so it ends up making professional money. Same with my audiobook production company, like that really just initially started as a hobby, and then my friend telling me like, oh, I should probably do this like a business. Just turning your hobbies into like a professional, or doing your hobbies professionally, and then getting professional income.
No, that's real. Because I'm literally in a season right now of like evaluating all the things that I do, and I'm like, how did I get here? How did I get to the point where I'm doing so many things? And it's kind of like what you said. It's like it started out as like, oh, I'm just going to do this thing. It's just going to be like a cute little side thing or whatever. And then it grew into something much larger. And now it's just like, oh, okay, this is actually a full-time job. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, I'm okay with that. Like, I'm okay with the spoils that come with it. But it's also like, when you look back and it's just like, oh, I was just doing this because I wanted to do this, or I was passionate about this. And now it's something much bigger than that, And I think honestly, the best type of stories come from, oh, I was just writing these stories because I love to do it, or I'm passionate about this. And then I was like, okay, yeah, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right. But also, there's that age old saying where it's just like, what is it? It's like basically when you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life.
Oh yeah, my dad tells me that all the time, because he's always seeing like what I'm doing, and he's always saying that about me.
Oh, yeah. And that can also lead you into realizing that you are overworking yourself because you love what you do. And when the things that you do for fun becomes the things that you do for work, it can definitely blur the lines a bit of when you're going too hard at times, But I feel like we've deviated just a little bit, because I do have questions and things that I want to ask you specifically about, because this is the third book in the TJ Young and the Orishas series. And so the first question I have is this a trilogy, or is it still going?
No, it's a 6-book series.
Okay. So that being said, you are halfway. First of all, how does that feel, right, to be going through this series? Because one of the things that I remember us talking about in an earlier episode of the podcast is how TJ is meant to grow, like age-wise, throughout the series. And so I know that, like, when we're talking about, I'll say children, because I know teenagers aren't children, but like as a grown person, they're children.
No,
right?
if you go to any high school and you look at those children, they are children.
Children. Yeah. Babies. How does it feel to be like writing him and like incorporating that maturity into his character, but also like maintaining his voice and who he is? Because I know that's something that a lot of authors would struggle with.
I mean, it's kind of like the Holy Trinity that I had for this going into it was Percy Jackson and Harry Potter, and the one that most people don't realize is Degrassi. And I'm getting more into like the Degrassi parts of it now as they're getting older. Like, for example, book 4, which, I mean, we're not talking about, but I'm currently writing right now. There's some, like substance abuse. There's like first time sexual experiences and stuff like that. So like they really, really do grow as they grow, in the same way that Degrassi, you started with them when they were in middle school, and you see them all the way through graduating high school. So now that I'm getting more into them getting older, and like, the tagline that Degrassi used to have, it goes there. A lot of stuff is starting to go there. So yeah, that's the mentality that I had. So that first book really does feel more like upper middle grade, or like a lot of people will call it middle grade, which is intentional. Like, it's supposed to be that way because that's him transitioning from, it's the summer right before high school, and then you get into the second book, and then you start getting a little bit of evolution. You have like some house parties with teenagers doing some things they shouldn't be doing, as teenagers do. You get little hints of that, but still, whimsical,
safe.
Young adult kind of stuff. Third book, you get a little bit more young adult stuff, heavier themes. Book 4 is when we're solidly in the space of like young adult. And it's definitely like an age up, coming of age story in the truest sense of the word, that you have them actually coming of age.
I love that, because I feel like this era of storytelling really needs something like that, where it's just like, you have to be in it for the long haul, and you get something from each book, and each story is an encapsulation of a specific time in growing up, And it's just kind of like, I appreciate the fact that you're doing this, and also the fact that you're doing it for, a Black audience, and specifically like a Black male audience, because so many times I feel like people don't give enough credit to that, especially since at least in the spaces that I'm in, it feels so female dominated, you know? So I personally, I love to see it. And I'm also not going to lie, I am such a shallow girly sometimes. And so whenever I see your artwork and things come up, I'm just like, oh, I get so excited. So kind of leading into what we were talking about before and investing in things, I would love to kind of talk about that getting that together, because I know something that a lot of authors struggle with is getting the character art and knowing how to use it and knowing how to utilize it. And I feel like you are one of the authors that whenever I see on my timeline, you are really incorporating your stories and your artwork across your entire like brand. You know, it's like it's always there. So first of all, kudos for that. And then second of all, how do you go about like acquiring these things and deciding how you're going to use it?
Oh yeah, I totally forgot to mention. I'm not sure when this is coming out, if it's coming out in May or not. But there is a Kickstarter that I'm doing, because you were talking about like, you know, things building up, stuff like that, and artwork is a big part of that. Like one of my stretch goals, which I'll say here, is to make a comic book for the short story that precedes the TJ series about Eshu, and how he gets his human body to, you know, get to the human world. Artwork is pretty substantial to me. I mean, that might come from me being like coming from a visual industry with the film industry, and I've been associated with like, you know, animation and art and stuff like that. So I have a good eye for it. I could have possibly, if I went down that route, like been able to draw something like this, but I went the, you know, the writery behind the scenes kind of thing. So I do know the concepts behind things. So I think I communicate to artists very well about like composition and color palettes and, you know, different styling and stuff like that. And also, you know, I seek out professional artists, and I have, you know, in the past worked with artists who aren't super professional, and I just don't work with them much anymore. You know, like you have to know when to like let go a relationship or not go with something and say no. You know, It's good to say no.
That is a word. And if you guys are listening to this podcast, please do not skip over that, because if you are in this writing space and you're going to make connections, that's just the reality of it. If you're in this space long enough professionally, you're communicating with people, you're going to make connections, you're going to network, and you're going to meet some really cool people, and you're going to possibly, you know, link up and create something together, and it's going to be dope for the moment. And then it's okay if you grow. It's okay if you know better in the future and you're just like, as much as I loved you in this moment and I needed you in this moment and this helped me get to the next place, it's okay, like as Antoine said, to let go. It's like no hard feelings, but also where I'm at now and where I'm going, I need a different level of whatever I'm looking for, whether that be an editor, whether that be an artwork, whether that be proofreaders, beta readers, feedback, marketing, whatever. Like it's okay if your team changes as you navigate your career. It's natural. And the first time that it happens, you're going to be like, oh man, is it me? Like, am I switching up on the team? Like, and it's not that. You can't take it personally.
It's almost like dating, you know, you got to like play the field so you can know what your type is, or, you know what I mean? like it really is like that. And you have to know when to move on from relationships so you don't get, like, you know, stuck on that train.
Exactly. You have to know when it's like, we were good for a season and I appreciate that. But I also know that we are not going to continue to be in this next season together. And that's okay. You know, keep up with them in the group chat. But, you know, that doesn't mean you have to work together with them business wise, you know. But let's talk about this Kickstarter, because I have seen it, and also this is not your first Kickstarter,
right? So, yeah, I've done a Kickstarter for my debut novel, which it wasn't cool back then. I'll let you know, it was actually like frowned upon back in 2017 to be doing a Kickstarter for author. I don't know why that was like the mentality or the culture during that time, but Brandon Sanderson changed that real quick when he made it? $40 million on Kickstarter or something like that.
Like he's made the most money on Kickstarter.
Yes,
like,
and then he
has the whole record, doesn't he?
Say again.
I'm pretty sure he holds the record for
he holds the record
for
the publishing subcategory, but also all categories. Because mostly what it was known for back then was like video game development for people who were like independent developers, and comic books were huge on there, but never really publishing. And when Brandon Sanderson did that and made his $40 million, it suddenly became cool to do Kickstarter. So I'm like, I've been doing it forever. You guys, now it's cool. So yeah, I did that for my debut novel, and then I did it for an anthology, and now I'm doing it for this 3-book collection. I'm compiling the first 3 books of the TJ series into an omnibus, which is going to include the deleted scenes that I have from it, artwork that never made it to the cover or like the inside interior art, possibly some more interior art depending on if we meet some of our stretch goals. But the most important thing and the most unique thing that I have not really seen people do too often is author commentary via footnotes. So whenever you're
I want to do that
reading
so
it,
bad.
so in the same way that you have like movie commentary, like if you watch like The Dark Knight and then you like listen to a track with like Christopher Nolan speaking to Hans Zimmer or whatever, right? I basically do that throughout the entire book. I'm going to reread the entire book, and anytime I'm like, oh yeah, I did that because of this reason, or I made the character, you know, or this scene was difficult for whatever, you know, you're going to get all of that like insight into like, you know, the author's mind, you know, in this specific exclusive Kickstarter, you know, omnibus.
I am so excited for it. Part of the reason is because one of the things that I have always loved, and I loved it the first time I saw it, is there is a very specific version of Avatar: The Last Airbender that aired on Nickelodeon that had Avatar extras.
Oh, yeah, it's just like that. Yeah, just like that.
I ate it up as a kid, and I was just like, when I finished the Wrath of the Gods series, I am going to do something special with it. And part of that is actually already in the works. I can't like talk about it yet, like on record, because I haven't announced it yet. But one of the things that I do want to do is I want to have like a CM Lockhart extras version of the book, where it's just like you get all the extra details and stuff, kind of like what you're talking about. And I'm just like, I love that. I want to know all the behind the scenes information. Like, I don't know what it is about it, but something about that just makes my brain extremely happy. So when does your Kickstarter start, and how long are you planning for it to run? Because I know that right now you have it up like,
yeah,
hey,
it's the pre-launch right now, and it's gonna go live on May 6th. And the reason for that is because I have 4 live events in May, which I spoke to a little bit earlier, that I'm doing live events now, which are incredible. We'll talk about that more if you want to as well, but I really, really recommend live events for indie authors. Yes. So with those 4 events, and I already saw a little bit with my pre-launch when I just did the LA Times Festival of Books in Los Angeles at USC, University of Southern California. Tomi Adeyemi was there, by the way. She was signing her books. I met Ian Williams, who did Blood at the Root for the first time, even though we had been talking online already. So whenever people will come up or they make a purchase, I was like, hey, you know, if you want like a free print, follow my Kickstarter, you know, kind of a thing. And that pre-launch is you know, working. Cause I'm trying to have at least 100 followers before I launch. And then I'm going to launch on May 6th. And then it's going to end on, what comes out through May? June. June 6th is when it ends.
No, you sound just like me. Like, wait,
what's coming after? What's after A, B, C? I think it's D, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, dope. Absolutely. You guys go check it out. I personally can vouch for TJ.
Go support the Kickstarter because it's going to be exclusive. Like literally, I will not be publishing the omnibus on any retailer for at least a year. So the only way you can get the omnibus is through the Kickstarter, or if you happen to see me at a live event. But I only do really live events in Southern California, except for in DC, Imaginarium. I'm doing that this year as well.
So yeah, you guys get into it. But that being said, let's talk about these live events, because I was actually having a conversation, I want to say it was on a Melanin chat recently, where we were talking about the fact that there is this idea that the human interaction element of being an indie author,
so important.
It's so important. And I feel like it's one of those things that kind of gets overlooked because so many authors are naturally introverts, and it does cost money. Like, I'm not going to like pretend that it doesn't. It costs money to go to events, and it is definitely something that you have to kind of weigh the pros and cons and the costs of, because I'm not going to hold you, as an indie author, it can be really hard to break even, just to like break even for an event, let alone like go and make a profit, depending on how far it is, lodging, travel expenses, everything while you're there, all of that. Like, it,
I'll tell you what, my live event, my most recent one with the USC Festival of Books, which is my biggest one usually during the year, because it's USC Festival of Books, it was $1,300, maybe $1,350 for a tent for 2 days. So what you do is that you get some author friends and then you split the cost. So I split that cost with 3 other authors. So we brought down our, costs, like I think per was $375 for each of us for one day, one something, so that actually equated to what most Comic Cons are, which in my brain, if it's $150 a day, or $150 to $200, that's like kind of like my ballpark of where I want to be, to not only break even but to profit on the event consistently based on my product line, how I generally sell, stuff like that. But you have to know that, it's important to know that number so that you can know what spaces you can move in.
Absolutely. And I know that it's one of those things that as an indie author, especially if you've never done it before, because again, I've talked to new indie authors who are just like, that seems so far out of my league. Like I can't see myself on the other side of one of these tables at an event. And it's just like the first time you do it, it's kind of surreal. But then after that, you realize it's just business. Like you go, you sign up, you get your books, and I always encourage authors to have like a persona, especially if you are like a heavy introvert. And see, for me, I like Chelsea is for my homies, my friends, my family. Like that's who I am. But when I go to an event, I'm CM Lockhart. I'm really I'm like, hi, how are you? And I'm like talking to you and smiling, and I'm like, haha. And then I'm gonna go home and I'll be like, don't look at me.
Yep.
I need to not be perceived for like a solid hour.
Yeah.
So, but being able to talk to people and being able for them to associate you with your book and understand that the product isn't just another book on a shelf. It's a person, it's a story on a page, and you're like, hey, and actually being able to tell people about your book, that is such an important element of connecting with people and being able to, like I said, have a career and sustain yourself, because there are a lot of books in the world. There are a lot of shelves. It's a lot to compete with when you're trying to be like, hey, this person's walking into a bookstore and they're only buying 3 books. There are easily thousands of books in here. Why are they picking up yours? It's a lot easier when you're at a festival or an event and everybody's there for fantasy. Your target audience came to you. You just have to be there and show up. A lot of times when people buy your book at an event and they like you and they buy your stickers and stuff, they remember you. So even if they never read that first book, when you release that second book, they're going to be like, oh, I have the first one on the shelf. Let me go ahead and get it. Never cracked open the first one. It doesn't matter because now they know you. Now there's a human connection, and that matters, you know?
Because online sales are so hard because like this nebulous like ether of like, who am I actually talking to? But having that face-to-face is, oh my God, it's incredible.
Yeah. Like online selling is navigating an algorithm. And I feel like we can have a whole discussion about that as well, because honestly, I feel like you do it really well, especially on your Instagram profile. Like I said, you have your artwork and you are posting things, and, you know, your captions and stuff make you feel like, oh, I actually know this person. Maybe it's because I've just talked to you and I feel that way. Maybe it's a me thing, but I feel like you do really well on your social media platforms. Just in general.
I wish I did super well. I mean, maybe because I'm comparing myself to like people who are like, you know, making 6 figures a year, like indie authors, but also those are the people who are putting out like 12 books a year. So, you know,
12 books a year is crazy.
Yeah, it's super crazy.
But also, I won't sleep on the authors who like take years planning that out, and they're like, I want a successive release, where it's just like, I'm planning this so that every other month you are getting something from me. Like that takes planning and commitment. So I'm
trying to do that right now because I'm writing an urban fiction right now, an adult urban fiction that actually takes place in the same TJ Young universe. It's kind of like X-Files meets Men in Black, but like mystical, so like Dresden Files like.
Okay.
And I'm almost done with book 1, and I'm just going to sit on it. And I'm going to sit on it until book 3 is written, and then I will produce the audiobook for book 1. Like I'm trying to do that and just release it at the end of this year, hoping to do it like September, November, February, or something like that. And I'll see how that works, because I've never tried that before. Every time I finish a book, I'm like, I wanted to put it out and I want to see what people think about it. Now I'm going to try this whole sitting on books thing.
No, that's real. I'm currently working on what I call Project Necromancer, and my goal is to write both books at the same time, so that by the time the first book comes out, it's just like, okay, the second book is already, it's done. It's like, I'm fine if it's in the editing process, but I'm not like actively trying to draft it while also trying to market the first book, because I feel like that's a whole... There's so much to indie authoring that I'm like, we could have whole conversations about, because even like talking about marketing a book and trying to like stagger things so that you have the energy to like market and do the push and the live events and things and appearances, the podcasts, while also being like, I still need to make sure that I'm writing the next book so that there isn't this huge gap in between these books. That is definitely a mistake that I made with The Wrath of the Gods. And I'm like, okay, learning from this, my next series, I'm not gonna do this. So I'm gonna have it written and prepared before the other books come out. But you live and you learn. That's part of any journey, you know? So now that you're on book 3 with TJ Young and you've got another 3 books coming up, what would you say that you've learned from writing the first 3 books that you maybe want to learn from when writing the second 3 books in this series?
Sitting on it, because what happened is that with book 1 and 2, those not done at the same time, but book 1 was done for like I think a few months at that point, and book 2 I had the pre-order up for, and it was like halfway written, and it had this momentum, but then the third book like took way longer to do, and like the momentum kind of petered off because of that. So it's super, super important, especially with series writing, to like have a consistent release schedule, because you can just break that momentum, because people will be excited, but then there's like a billion other books out there and a billion other authors to look at. So they'll forget, and then they'll be like, oh yeah, I did. Like, but I mean, there are people who are like, oh, I reread it, and that's a good compliment too, is that people will say like, oh, I'm rereading the series right now before I get into such and such a book, and that sort of thing. And also
that is an ego boost.
Yeah, but I mean, you still are going to lose that natural like organic reach that you'll get like on an Amazon or like a Audible or Spotify. So yeah, that I would sit on the books as long as possible, because that momentum of pushing through is really important. I would say probably the momentum of 3 books is probably the most important to have in series writing specifically.
Yeah, for sure.
So like having book 1 for book 2 and 3 ready to go at the same time, so that you have that read through, which is very important.
Yeah, or at least when book 2 comes out, have that pre-order for book 3.
If book 2 is released
like
and you don't have the pre-order for book 3, you're not doing it correctly.
Ready to go?
Yeah, or you're not so much doing it correctly. You're just not optimizing if you're trying to profit.
Oh yeah, because momentum is a very real thing, and it's something that I can't speak for everyone, but I know that for me, it's something that I didn't realize how real it is until book 2 of Wrath of the Gods came out, and I was just like, I'm tired. Mm-hmm. Like, I have been going nonstop for book 1 and book 2. Book 1 came out, I was like, great, did everything, got to book 2, dropped that, and they were like a year apart, and I was like, perfect, you got one in 2022, you got the next one in 2023. 2024, I was tired, and I was like, I need a break, I need a nap, I need to breathe. And so that is when I started working on a different project. But now I'm kind of like, ooh, I kind of wish I hadn't taken that break, because the momentum whenever I'm doing live events, right? Because, in that time, I released Magic and the Melanin, the anthology. Mm-hmm. And then I also started my novella series, right? So I've been releasing projects, but it's just like, it's a lot easier to move your books and sell them when it's complete, or when you could be like, oh, I have these 3 books and they go together. It's a lot easier to bundle them when you're like, oh, it's done,
Or even when you're marketing, when you say completed series, that's a huge thing to a reader. If you say completed series.
Yes, because then they know it's like, okay, if I get into this and I get invested, it's not going to just like stop, and it just doesn't exist. So don't be like me, be like Antoine. Make sure you get your stuff together, get your Kickstarters out there, and get your momentum going, and promote and go to your live events. Like you're really doing it right, and I'm really glad to see it and watch it in real time.
Yeah,
like,
it's been a nice little side income, but obviously I need that initial capital to do it, which is important. But once you get it rolling, then you can just keep churning it.
Absolutely. The goal is ultimately for your first book to pay for your second one, and your second one to pay for your third. Mm-hmm. So that being said, all of this, we've been talking about, TJ Young, we've been talking about your upcoming projects and things of that nature and what you've learned from it. But what would you say that you would want other people to like learn and take from reading your work, whether it be TJ Young or any of your other work?
Like readers or writers?
Ooh, let's do both. Readers first and then writers.
Well, readers, I just want to make sure they're entertained. And I think that's a thing that's can be lost in the fray of like the production and like, oh, how artful is it? Like, are people enjoying your story? Like ultimately, like that's like the main thing. Like, are people coming up and being like, oh, I really enjoyed that scene that made me like, for instance, in book 3, there was a woman who I met at Imaginarium, Washington, D.C. last year, who I thought was just being nice, like at the conference. It's like kind of like doing you're here, let me buy it kind of a thing. And she hadn't read it like right away, and she read it, I think, because I reached out to her because I was looking for ARC readers for the book 3, and she's like, oh, I know I hadn't read book 2 or 1 and 2. She went through those faster than I think anybody else in the ARC team, and then did book 3 on top of that because she hadn't initially gotten to it. And that's the thing about like reminding people like, you think you might do it once, like, oh, here's my book, and then you like scurry away or whatever. Like, you have to keep doing it because you don't know what people's days are or what algorithm they're being shown, all that kind of stuff. So you got to keep going, because you might be losing your someone who will be your favorite reader, or someone who you'll become their favorite author. So for her, she had this really compelling review for book 3 where she literally was like teary-eyed. Like, she gave me like a voice memo like on Instagram talking about her experience with the book with one particular character who had been going through some stuff. because he has a disability that he's dealing with, and he's a very confident character. And I did that intentionally because he's such a confident character. I was like, what should I take away from him? And that's the thing you do to your characters, right? You kind of like see how much you can torture them.
How can I break you?
Yeah, how can I break you? Basically. So I was like, oh, he's a big talker. I'm like, oh, let's take away his voice. So he has like a bit of a stutter, so he doesn't like speak as much as he usually does. He's trying to learn telepathy because it's a magical world, but he's having struggles with telepathy because it's a practice that takes like 3-4 years to master. So he was dealing with that, and also something with his father character, and then on her voice memo, like you could hear like the emotion breaking her voice. Is stuff like that. You got to remember, it's just about the reader ultimately and the story and how they're navigating the story. And sometimes you can get in the way of yourself if you're thinking too much about like how pretty your prose is, or things that really readers don't think about, more like what editors think about, and you might get just caught up in that world. And that's the reason why you should have editors and beta readers, because beta readers are more conventionally going to be your readers who aren't really going to be, they're thinking just chiefly about story. Am I compelled? Yeah. Am I getting through this scene? I don't really care about how pretty this line is, kind of stuff. That would be for your readers. So keep that in mind for your readers. For writers, the things that I would say to take away, again, what I was saying before, sit on 3 books if you're doing series stuff. Live events, huge. If you have a live event anywhere near you, Comic Cons, not flea markets. Flea markets don't do as well, like because people are looking for deals and they're not generally, they're trying to haggle you on your prices sometimes. But Comic Cons, book festivals, for sure. Go to them. If you can, try to have as many books as possible, because actually what indie authors will tell you is that you should be writing in like to market, and you should write into a specific niche when you're online, which is true. Like that is where you're going to find more success. But actually at live events, it's the opposite. If you have more diverse books, like if you're like, oh, I have children's books, I have a dark fantasy, I have, horror, or middle grade whimsical stuff, that is better, because then you can sell a book to every person who walks by you. And they want, a diverse, palette of selection. Books, a selection of books. So yeah, that live events is like the thing I've been screaming to the heavens about to indie authors. In particular, one of my friends, Francesca McMahon, they are in the UK, have been doing live events, completely turned their career around, because before, online sales, hard to get. We all have been through that. Then I told them, do live events, please. They did their first one. I think they made like 75 sales on their book.
Yeah, because if you can afford to get the stock and like be there, the thing about live events that I think is kind of underrated is the fact that every person you see can potentially be a person to buy your book, even if they don't look like your target demographic, right? Because sometimes they will purchase a book for someone who's not there, like an aunt or a niece or a nephew or a sister or brother or mom or whoever. Like, I don't read fantasy, but this person in my life loves it, so I'm going to get this book for them. And then you've made like a passive sale for somebody you've never met who may absolutely love your work, right? But then there's also the people who see it, who likely probably never would have come across your book, who are like, I would like to give it a try. Because I remember the event that I did when I came to California, and it was in the mall, and it was just, there are people who were like, I don't normally read, or I haven't read since I was in like the 8th grade, but this is really cool and it sounds cool, so I'm going to get a copy of the book. And it's just like, my stuff would have never come across that person's feed on Instagram, no matter how good my marketing was, because it's not what they were looking for. And sometimes being in the right place at the right time, you really cannot underestimate that, especially if you have the ability to talk to strangers with a modicum of confidence. Like, it's a learned skill for sure, but if you can talk to strangers and just be like, hi, how are you? Can I tell you about my book? You can move so many books in such a short amount of time. And it's just like, that can honestly be game changing. And then you also mentioned that for readers, being entertaining, right, in your work. And I know it's so crazy, because I know we are in currently this timeline, I'll say, where writing to market and writing for tropes is like so important in marketing, especially I'll say within the YA space. It seems so heavily enemies to lovers. It's so heavily romance focused, right? And so it's kind of nice to bring up the fact that, like, no matter what you're doing, it should be entertaining for the reader. It should be something that, like you said, there should be moments where the reader connects with the characters, even if it's not the main character. Every character should have depth and be able to reach someone, right? And so the fact that you do have that experience of someone being like, this moved me, it's just like, I don't even know how to explain it as an author when someone's like, this one character who might be not a main character, maybe not even part of the main cast, just part of the world that the characters exist in. And they're like, I saw myself in this character, and it's really dope that you included them, because you mentioned including a character with a disability, and I don't know, that kind of resonated with me, because I know with Death Among the Stars, there's a character and she's in a wheelchair. And yes, it's space. Yes, it's magic. Yes, it's like advanced technology. But like, this is just also this character's reality. And I remember one of my readers saying like, I appreciate you for including that, because I'm in a wheelchair and I didn't feel like I had to be excluded from this world simply because of that. And it's just like, you never know who's reading your stuff, who's connecting with it. And when you include stuff like that, and then you also are writing, compelling plots, and you're including magic and the fun, and you're enjoying what you write, you have all the ingredients to make something that is not just fun for you, but fun for the reader too. And I don't know, I wish fun was the central aspect of more books, especially the ones that are coming out. So I don't know, that was a tangent, but it got me excited when you were like, you want the reader to enjoy it. Like, what? That's crazy. You're not leaving some deep, philosophical message?
Right. Like the ending of book 3 for TJ in particular, like it's a big twist ending. So while I say I am writing a 6-book series, it's really 3 and 3, and that will become extremely apparent for those who get to the end of book 3, because like literally everyone who's gotten to the end has been like, oh my God, did not expect that. This is insane. Because there is a big flip that happens towards the end.
Okay. No spoilers. But that said, you guys absolutely, please go pick up this book, this series. It's so good. It's so good. You will not be disappointed. But that being said, we are coming up on that 45-minute mark. So I have one more question for you, and then we are going to wrap this up. And it's the same question that I ask you every time you come on the podcast. So hopefully you're prepared for it at this point. What writing advice would you give to any new authors starting out on their writing journey? And I know this whole podcast episode has been filled with writing advice. So what else you got for them?
Well, I mean, the big thing is just to write. Don't say I'm an aspiring writer. Say you are a writer, because that stuff manifests when you actually put that out there, instead of just being like, one day or maybe. No. Say, no, I am an author and I'm currently writing my first book. I will be published, actually make statements, not like question marks.
Ooh, statements, not question marks. That's real. I second that. Like you have to move and navigate. And there's this prevalent idea on the internet. It's just like, you have to start living your life as if you are already the person that you are trying to be. Right. And I second that. Like, if you're going to be an author, write, sit down, prioritize it, start shifting your mindset. Write the stories, get better at it, study the craft, talk to other authors, build your network, your community, whatever. Move as if you were already that person. So that being said, if you could let the people know where to find you, especially reminder of the Kickstarter.
Oh, yes.
And also where to get the book from when it releases.
Yeah. So,
or it's already out.
Yeah, book 3 is already out on major retailers. I'm still working on the audiobook for those. I have a big fandom for the audiobooks in particular. It's just taking a long time because the thing is massive. It's probably going to be like a 25-hour audiobook or something like that. I still have 20 more hours of just pure work hours left to do it between everything else I'm doing. But yeah, on all the major retailers, AntoineBandele.com is where you'll find everything. It'll shoot you out to every social media, every platform that I'm on. Kickstarter right now, Kickstarter.com. If you look up TJ Young the Orishas, the very first thing you'll see pop up is the Kickstarter that I have live right now for the 3-book omnibus that's happening right now, and it's going to be exclusive to Kickstarter for at least a year, unless you see me at a live event, then it'll be there as well. But yeah, I think that's everything. Yeah, just my website, and you'll find everything that you can find about me.
Awesome. And if you guys are listening to this or watching this on YouTube, then you can go to the place where you get your links from, whether that be the description box or the show notes, and there'll be a link to his website and his Kickstarter, so you guys can check that out. But that being said, that is it for this episode of the Written in Melanin podcast. If you'd like to support the podcast, then please share it with someone that you think may enjoy it. Join our membership on the Melanin Library website. Grab a copy of my books from cmlockhart.com or donate to the podcast so that we can continue making content for you guys. There are links in the show notes / description box for everything. And thank you guys again so much for listening. Until next time, I hope all your books are full of melanin.